everybody. Raul here for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of chatting with one of those that I believe are the future of bass, Gabriel Severn. How you doing today?
I'm good. Very good, yeah.
Great, great. I'm always excited to talk to the young bassists in our community because, again, the old guys won't last forever, and I'm seeing so much talent in our young players, and you're one of the guys that I believe is going to be somebody to keep an eye on for the future. But let's take a step back. Let's talk about how you got started in music and on bass.
From when I was a young toddler, I would always be, attracted to the low end of any music I heard. My dad is a professional trumpet player, and I would go to his concerts, and I'd just always point out the bass. And I'd be sitting in the back of his car, and he'd turn music on, and I'd just point it out. So I guess I was always drawn to that low end. 5 years later, I'm talking as if I was 2 years old. 5 years later, at age 7, I finally picked it up, and it was just an old flea market bass that my dad just got and assumed that I might want to be playing because I had pointed it out so much. So, yeah, 7 years old is when I started.
And so did they start you in lessons at that age, or were you just kind of working on it on your own?
Well, I consider the first day I started playing to be my first lesson, which was January 24th, I think. Yeah, so I'll be coming up on 8 years. Yes, I started taking lessons with a local bass player, and he teaches guitar, bass, and music technology at a local college, so named Tim Breon. So I started taking lessons with him, and yeah, that's where it started.
And how did you continue to progress? Playing at school, or?
Yeah, I played in school bands. My dad would help me with different things. I'd just go online and listen to things and pick them up. A couple of years later, I started taking lessons with Anthony Wellington, and I started going to camps. I went to Victor Wooten's camp down in Nashville, went to Gerald Veasley's camp, and there's a camp that Central Pennsylvania jazz organization puts on every summer. It's a jazz camp, so I've attended that.
What I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is it sounds like you're very much gravitating towards that jazz fusion end of the spectrum, where a lot of your contemporaries may be wanting to rock out and all that. You're going after that hardcore fusion-y kind of stuff. Tell us a little bit about what attracts you about that kind of music.
Well, again, since I was young, I would just sit on my dad's lap and we'd watch videos of Jacko. And I would watch him a lot, and the Weather Report and the Yellow Jackets and just various fusion bands. So from a young age, I always had it around my house. So I just picked it up. I really liked it.
Mentioning Jacko, you're playing with a group. You guys have a jazz trio, which is aptly named Teen Town. Tell us, how did that group come together?
It's been a couple of years since I had started playing, and I wanted to form a fusion band. And I met the kids that are in it at that Central PA jazz camp that I was talking about. Yeah, it's just a keyboardist, Connor Rower, and the drummer Logan Bedard. I met them both at the camp, and then a couple months after, I think it was the second time I went to the camp, we reached out to them, and yeah, they were into it.
You guys, even coming together beyond the camp, even had mention in an award, I guess, in Downbeat magazine?
It was a student music award from Downbeat, around a year after we started, so yeah.
Well, you've got so much packed into so little time already, but this is great. I'll be sure that people see some of the videos that you have. I watched Donna Stepp's Giant Lee Challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was a challenge that a great keyboardist, Jesus Molina, he put out. I don't know if you've seen any of your stuff. He's really good, play really fast, but he put the melody to Donna Lee over the chord changes for Giant Steps.
Okay.
And it was really fast, 300 beats per minute. So I wanted to transcribe it because it was a challenge that he put out on the internet.
And I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about gear, not just because I see the basses behind you, but...
Yeah.
And at a young age, I can see you already have what we call gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah.
But tell us, how are you getting your sound?
Well, a couple of years ago, I was approached by Mark Bass. It was after I released a video of me doing Jacko's solo on Havona, and they sent me some gear because they had noticed that I was using some, because I was in a Motown band, I think fairly soon after I started playing, and the band already had a Mark Bass amp, so they'd seen pictures of me playing one, and they asked, like, how did I get it and if I wanted any more. So that came around, and it was really good. They've been really good to me, sent me multiple amps, and they sound really good. They sound great. And then we got through to Ernie Ball Music Man through Mark Bass, because they know each other. The owners both know each other, and they have a history. This is the 6-string that I play. It's a Ernie Ball bongo 6-string HS with a humbucker in the back. It sounded great. I mean, I do most of my soloing, most of my chords on this bass. A lot of my loops and compositions have been from this bass. They also sent me a 5-string Stingray. I love that bass for slapping, and the low B sounds really good with slap. It has a variety of tones. And they also sent me a Sterling Classic, and that, I think it's just a 2-band EQ, but it has a muting feature, which sounds really cool, and that also sounds great for slap. It's a really clean tone. Yeah, and then my fretless, this is made by a French luthier. I met him at NAMM, and then I came back, because I've been to NAMM twice so far, and I met him the first time, and then I was looking to get a fretless bass. He said he had made them, but he didn't have them at the show, and the next year he brought one, and that's when I really got to try it out, and it sounded really good.
I recognize that instrument as one of Paul Lerat's.
Yep, Paul Lerat, yep.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a beautiful bass.
Very cool, very cool. And with all of these basses, do you have a choice in strings? What are you playing on there?
There's a string maker in France as well named Carlos Pavicic, and I've been with him for a couple of years now. He's made my strings. I have custom ones, like custom gauges. I like to use nickel wound, and they sound really good.
Accessory-wise, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, because you've got to have a strap to hold your basses.
Yeah, fairly recently, actually. Ergo straps. They made some straps for me, and they're really good. They feel really great. I've used them on a couple of gigs so far. So. And
are there any other elements that are helping you get your sound, things that you're working with?
Yeah, actually, there's this pedal. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called the Beat Buddy. Yeah, it's a really great practice tool, and I actually used it on one of my recent gigs. It's got hundreds of different beats, styles, drum kits. It's got everything. So I use that for quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah, and I also use a Boss looping pedal.
I see you have the big Beat Buddy, because there's a mini, but you have the big one that's programmable. I think you can add in stuff as you go.
Yeah, I have all the add-ins, which adds so much more than it already has. So it's really good. Yeah. Something
that a lot of people overlook: cables. How are you connecting from your bass to all of this stuff?
For the most part, I've been using store-bought cables. We reached out. Mark Bass is making cables, and I recently got some of theirs, and they're really good.
Nice.
So yeah, I've been using those recently.
Looking ahead, what plans do you have? And you've got so much ahead of you. What's in the works?
First off, I hope to play with a lot of people, different styles too, because behind the scenes, I practice like everything. It's not just jazz fusion. I try to practice everything, just to become a well-rounded musician. I hope to attend a bunch of different camps just to further my playing. I definitely want to get into studying like some upright bass and composing. And as far as college, I'm not really sure right now. I'm definitely going to be thinking about it, but I'm not 100% sure on what I want to do yet.
There's so many paths, and there's not a single one that is absolutely right. It's whatever is right for you. And so I talk to musicians that had the benefit of going to some great programs, and they've learned from some great people. And I've also talked to some musicians that have, kind of learned trial by fire, that they were playing the clubs. I had a chance to talk to Reggie Workman. I don't know if you know. He's an upright player. He's at the other end of our spectrum. He's 82 years old. And Reggie played upright with Monk and Coltrane back in the day. And talk about being able to tear it up. But, it's all upright for him. And one of the interesting things he says is that they've tried to get him to play electric bass sometimes, but he says he just leaves that to Victor and to Stanley Clark and those guys because they're really good at it, and he's just going to stick with upright. So in your journey, who knows? You may be one of those players that can do both, which is a great skill to have. You know, you think of like Patitucci or some of these guys that are just as skilled either on electric, on upright, but it's kind of wide open for you, which is great. So if people want to stay on top of what you're doing, they want to know where to look, what are the best places? Is it GabrielSevern.com?
Yeah, I have a website. I do a lot of stuff on Instagram, which is just Gabriel Severn Bass, and I also have a Facebook page, which is Gabriel Severn Bassist.
Gotcha. Very cool. Yeah. Well, I'm very excited. It's great to have a chance to chat with you. We're looking forward to hearing a lot more really cool stuff from you, and I'm hoping this will be the first of many conversations down the line. We'll have to do an update, and then we'll kind of go, okay, this is where we were today. We'll find out where you are in the future. Folks, you've seen him here. Gabriel Severn, coming to you live on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thank you for having me.